All right. All right, Anthony, we're on that. Got the little technical issue taken care of. Anthony, thank you so much for coming on the show. Anybody watching, thank you. This is I Have the Heart podcast. I'm Logan Henderson. And this is Anthony Profeta, meditation teacher. Anthony, you're somewhat of a local celebrity around here. I feel like everywhere we go, everyone knows who Anthony Profeta is. So I'm really honored to have you on the show, man. I really appreciate it, and thank you for coming on.
Well, Logan, I appreciate you. It's an honor to be here with you. I really look forward to talking with you and to, seeing where this goes and what we're going to come up in the discussion today.
Absolutely, man. Well, if you wouldn't mind giving a little bit of background, I know that you studied under Jack Cornfield
I did.
and Sharon Salzberg, which is awesome. They have connections with Ram Dass,
Absolutely.
And Ram Dass was a huge guru in my life. He came around a couple of years ago for me and absolutely changed my life. So there's this strong connection between you and Ram Dass, and this goes back to like Timothy Leary and Allen Ginsberg and the big movement in the '60s.
Yep.
And so this is exciting for me. So if you
Well,
won't
thank
mind giving a little bit of background on your road to becoming a meditation teacher and your what you've been doing.
Absolutely. To be honest, I never thought I would be here. I never thought that one day I would be out teaching these practices or guiding people in these practices. But I always knew I wanted to help people in their journey towards self healing. But I thought that was going to be actually through a profession in medicine. And I went to medical school in New York City for a few years to go work on that path. But during that journey, I began to have a little bit of a conflict in my mind of not understanding what was happening because according to the American Medical Association and top universities such as Harvard and Duke, their studies show that now, when I was in school, it was approximately 67%, almost 70% of all illness and disease in this world. The root cause is stress. Studies now have said it's up to over 80%, so it's jumped about 10% in just a decade. And so now it's nearly 80% of all illness and disease, the root cause is stress. So I was going through school, I wasn't understanding. I'm saying, well, why aren't they teaching me ways to help people navigate the stressful world? Why aren't they sharing with me tools that I can give to people so that they can help manage their stress and deal with the stress that they're dealing with in their life or that's affecting them in their life? And so I was seeing that they were just telling me to treat people's symptoms. And that made no logical sense to me because if we have a stressor that's created a symptom and we just take the symptom away, the stressor then says, but wait a minute, you left me here. You didn't do anything about me at all. And if you leave me here and I can't express myself through this symptom anymore, I have to go to another organ system or another part of the body and begin to create symptoms or disease or illness somewhere else. So it's basically just like kicking the can down the road if you just treat symptoms, because then the patient's going to come back and you're not helping them uproot that underlying cause of the illness. So I began to take a much more holistic sort of turn in my approach. Look at like how can I help people with stress? How can I deal with stress management or move into something like that? And I knew from my own firsthand direct experience how much my meditation practice helped me through stressful times. I got onto the meditation path over 20 years ago, back in the year 2000. But again, that was for my own personal spiritual reasons. That was to have a deeper connection, with what I call God or whatever you want to put a label on that. If you call it, Atman or soul or universe, doesn't matter to me. But I was seeking that sort of deeper connection with something beyond myself, and never thinking that one day I would be using this in a more holistic sort of wellness for the body, mind, and emotions. But I did begin to look at meditation and dive into any studies that I could find. And at the time, there were about 4,000 articles on meditation and how it benefits stress and many other things. Today, we're up to nearly 8,000 published articles on how meditation and mindfulness practices help with stress reduction and help us to navigate the stressful world. So I began to take a much more holistic sort of turn. And once I did do that, as you said yourself, I went to study with some of the top teachers of meditation. So I'm very blessed and honored to call Jack Cornfield my guiding mentor and teacher till today. I reach out to him through emails when I have issues or when I'm dealing with things in my own practice. Sharon Salzberg is also another dear mentor and friend. I was very blessed with the opportunity to do a wonderful retreat with her and John Kabat-Zinn and a few other wonderful people, Shelley Tedelsky down in Deerfield Beach. And in 2019, I really had the blessed opportunity to sit and study and take not only teachings, but also initiations and tantric practices from the Dalai Lama himself. So
That
my journey in meditation has been a very interesting one I never saw coming, and one I'm very blessed to now be able to, and honored to share any of the knowledge that I have gained in these practices with any people who do come to me for either one-on-one instruction or to my classes or workshops or events. So it's been a very fun journey and an exciting journey, and I never thought that one day I'd be doing this.
No, it's absolutely awesome. Well, I'm pumped that you decided to take that road because I mean we're seeing these amazing benefits and the holistic approaches to how we can heal our bodies, and not just heal our bodies, but to live the best our best life through really finding harmony and balance within our systems. And really, if we come down to it, if we take care of our bodies and we are eliminating that stress and we're coming into balance, and using tools like sound bath meditation, and there's so many different types of modalities out there that we can use to help as a preventative. We get ourselves into a good harmonic state uh, a more percentage of the time. When these things start to come, like contagions and viruses and these different things, our body is way more apt to be able to fight these things naturally as they naturally occur. I mean, we're naturally living with hundreds of trillions of viruses every single day, and our body actually uses these things to become stronger as a biological organism. And the better we feed our body, not just with nutrition but with energy, what we put on our body, what we think and feel, is going to really it's going to help us live our absolute best life. And we're really here to be joyous people, right? I mean, we're here to be
Absolutely.
happy and joyous and expressive, right?
Yes. Yep.
So
Creative, all of that. And I
all
love
of
that you're saying that because I truly believe that you give the right sort in the right environment or the right atmosphere, and it knows how to take care of itself. It knows how to heal itself. It knows what it needs to do to keep itself strong. And like you're saying, if you practice some meditation or mindfulness or other spiritual practice or other energy work, there is evidence. There's research by, again, top universities that show you boost your immune system. You do all of these things that are so beneficial that you can just do by just a little tweak of a lifestyle. Just a little bit of an incorporation of just trying to sit silently, and it can work wonders for your body, mind, and soul.
That's awesome. I just got a little chill kind of run through my body as you're saying that, because I was visualizing just when the times when I meditate and come out of it. Like just the other day, for instance, I had this really bad headache, and I'm like, man, I was like, so I put on 528 hertz just on a
Yeah.
YouTube station. And I
Right.
was like, all right. And something was just like, go to the ground. And something kind of pushed me onto the ground. I'm just laying there. And all of a sudden, I mean, a lot of crazy things happen in meditation, but this one, it was like this flowing of energy, like waterfall being poured on me and poured on me. And I kind of really just went in outer space. I don't know what happened. But when I came out of it, I was like, not only did I not have a headache, I
Right.
felt amazing. And then this is the funny part of the story. I was playing 528 hertz, right?
Right.
So I went right downstairs and I went right to the singing bowl that I got from you, the Himalayan. Believe it or not, I've never been able to play this thing. It won't play. I'm like, so I just dong it. But I went down there and I'm like, I'm going to try playing this. So I hit it and then I went around it, and this thing played louder than ever. And I was like,
Beautiful.
this is crazy. This is how the 520, my body was actually vibrating to where the bull for the first time played like
Yeah.
loud. It's amazing how these things work, man.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I think there is a lot of scientific studies out there that talk about these things. I mean, there's people like Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton. I've brought them up before in other shows that are discussing the science behind the mind and frequency and the energy of what we really are, down to a photonic level, which is absolutely amazing.
It
So
is. And the more we dive into it, the more we discover about really how powerful we are as creators, as beings. And, we limit ourselves through our limited thinking and our thoughts and all of these other things. But we really do have a lot more uh, ability to create the life that we do want to be living health wise, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. It's really all inside of us.
it is. It absolutely is. We are. This is one of the things that gets me really excited, because in this kind of realization of we are the quantum element of existence. It's us. It's like we're the missing link. If we really sit and understand that we are the absolute expression of the universe inside of a biological body, that is
Yes.
having an experience.
Yes.
This is the ultimate, and it's like, wow, you can go anywhere with that type of thinking and that freedom. It's just amazing. I love it. Absolutely love
Yeah.
it. I wanted to ask you about sound bath healing. I took one of your courses, which was an awesome course. I'm so glad I did it because I learned a lot about sound and frequency that I really just didn't know. From your perspective, with sound bath healing, and you pre-COVID, you were doing a lot of traveling around doing sound bath meditations and doing workshops and seminars and taking large groups to India once or twice a year, which is awesome. I still like this on my like wish list of things to do.
Good. I hope
Um,
you can join us one day. It will
Oh
be
man,
great.
I tell you, I want to go so bad. It's just I think when the timing's right, maybe when the kids get a little older, that kind of thing. I'm definitely going to be going to India because it's calling my name for sure.
Yeah.
But if you wouldn't mind, like talking a little bit about like kind of the science behind sound bath healing, frequencies, how that works from your perspective, and maybe kind of bringing a little spiritual or conscious aspect to it as well.
Sure, absolutely. I personally became fascinated with singing bowls when I was in a Zen monastery for a retreat, and they would gong. They had like this huge singing bowl. It looks more like a vase than the metal Tibetan or Himalayan ones that most people see in stores or anything like that. But they would gong it to, and that was the announcement for everybody to come into the hall, get onto your cushion, and then they'd strike it again, and that meant the meditation was beginning. And I always found it very helpful to sort of follow that sound after they struck it into the silence. And it seemed to help me get into my inner silence. So I began to start getting more involved and really finding out more about sounds, frequencies, using sound as meditation. Because there's another man who was also teaching in the 60s. His name was Alex. For any of the listeners that might be out there, if you don't know of
What
him,
was that again?
wonderful guy to look at. Sure, Alan Watts,
Oh,
W
Alan
A
Watts.
T T.
Oh yeah. Oh, I love Alan. Yeah, you kind of glitched out a little bit, and then I didn't
Oh,
hear the last part. Alan
okay.
Watts. I
Yeah.
love that guy. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, he often told how using the doors of the ears and using sound was often most helpful way for people to get into a meditative state. And so I began to look into more about sound. I found some other wonderful teachings out there by sound healers, and also a man named Edgar Casey. If anybody's familiar with him, he was here in the United States back in like Virginia. Did some. They call him the sleeping prophet because he'd go into like a hypnotic state, and all this ancient wisdom was coming out of him. And he talked about sounds, frequencies, and vibrations a lot. So, sound as a modality for healing has actually been used for thousands of years by many different traditions. It's believed to have been used by ancient Egyptians. It's believed to have been used by, Aboriginal Australians with their long didgeridoos. It's believed to have been used in the northern Himalayan regions with the singing bowls, in China and the East with bells. So, sound has always been a modality of healing. In fact, if you go back in your research, the Chinese actually had a word for music prior, or well, not a word. They used, like little pictographs, but it was a little calligraphy image of music prior to their little pictograph for medicine. And if you look at the two words of music and medicine in Chinese, medicine is actually the word music with just two little like W's or pitchforks on top of it, and they believed that music was medicine to the soul. One of the first, I guess you could say, fathers of sound medicine is actually believed to be the ancient Greek philosopher and mathematician Pythagoras, who began to codify the way sound was. The Pythagorean scale is believed to be very beautiful and harmonic because it's supposedly mathematically perfect and broken up into perfect fifths and all of these things. And he would utilize sound to help treat some of his patients of illness and disease. He even believed that it could help people with intoxication. And so there are all of these different areas of the world that were using sounds, frequencies, vibrations. And Hindus were known for thousands of years to use the voice and mantras and vocal tones and vocal sounds as a way to bring alignment and healing to their body. They would try to resonate with the particular sound of a particular mantra and bring that vibration into their body. So it has been used for thousands of years by all cultures. But in terms of more recent uh, evidence. There is some evidence now that thankfully sound baths have become pretty popular over the past few years, where now universities and some scientific research has been dedicated to them. And what they have shown from it for those with the scientific mind, well, is there any benefit to listening to these sounds, going to a sound bath beyond the more spiritual, maybe woo woo stuff that people talk about, which we'll talk about in a minute, but maybe the balancing of the energetic body and the chakras. But for those with the more scientific mind, the research, and I believe it was the University of Toronto, uh, or maybe it was Ontario. It was a Canadian university, so please don't hold me to which one it was. But you can go back and research this. They did a study on sound baths, and they did a study with the metal Himalayan bowls, and they found that it begins to shift your brain waves out of the beta, which is like your everyday conscious mind, word mind, analytical mind, and began to shift it into the alpha in about 12 minutes. Now, why is that sort of interesting? It's interesting because it showed that people who would go to sound baths and would use sound or listen to singing bowls as a way to get more relaxed, calm, into a meditative state were actually able to do it quicker than people who were just trying to practice in a formal silent sit. In fact, people who practice a formal silent meditation, it takes them about 20 minutes to get from the beta into the alpha state, which is why many meditation teachers or mindfulness teachers recommend to their students you should meditate for about 20 to 30 minutes a day, because it takes about 20 minutes for the mind to get there. But people who are going to a sound bath were actually entering into the alpha state 8 minutes quicker. So there is evidence that the entrainment of the brain waves out of the beta and into the more relaxed, possibly if you're very relaxed, into a very deep rejuvenative state known as theta, happens quicker with the sounds and the vibrations. But now, in terms of spiritual traditions, since you asked a little bit about that as well, many traditions say that our energetic body, now, whether you're coming out of a spiritual tradition or not only do the Buddhists and the Hindus and the the all the Western religions, they believe that we have something more than our physical nature. Some call it a soul, some call it Atman, some call it a Buddha nature. They believe that there's a part of us that is timeless and eternal, beyond our physical flesh and blood body. Now, even if you don't come out of a spiritual tradition and you're just scientific minded, science confirms that you're more than your physical body, because great men like Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, Niels Bohr, all of the great quantum physicists and scientists, they've all stated that the entire world of form that we see around us, the rocks, the trees, the sun, the moon, the stars, and our physical flesh and blood body, the stuff we call matter, is not true reality. The true reality is that all matter is energy, and that means we are an energetic vibration. That means we weren't created at our birth. It means that there's this energy, because the number one law of energetics is energy can't be created and can't be destroyed. All it can simply do is transition from one state to another. And so if we're an energy, that means at our birth, this energy that is animating our body, that is moving us, that is, seeing this universe through our eyes, transitioned from somewhere and entered this form and now is living in this incarnation as whatever we call ourselves, Logan, Anthony, or whoever else is listening. But that energy also doesn't get destroyed when the body gets worn out and we die. It just transitions somewhere else. So many spiritual traditions say we have an energetic body, and they label it in such a way, which science says we are. They say we're an energy. But to these spiritual traditions, they say that our energetic body has energy centers associated with it, and they term those energy centers chakras, running from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. Now, there are quite a few different chakra systems out there, but many here in the United States, or if you go into yoga communities and you talk to them, they're familiar with the seven chakra system that seems to run from the base of the spine to the crown of the head in the colors of the rainbow: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet. Well, sadly, those chakras aren't always in balance. They need a tune up every once in a while. And there's many ways to do that. Formal yoga can do it, formal meditation can do it, being out in nature can do it, color therapy can do it, they say, because the chakras align to certain colors, but so can sound. And the way the chakras get thrown out of balance is there's many different things: interactions with people, words, thoughts, emotions. illness, disease can all throw the energetic body out of balance. Although most say that illness and disease, some of the underlying root cause is the energetic body being out of balance, which then manifests physically. So, how can we help to attune that? Well, as I said, you can do spiritual practices, but sound and vibrations are believed to do it as well. In fact, the scientist Isaac Newton was one of the first to say that the seven colors of the rainbow, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet, those seven frequencies of color, directly correlate to the seven frequencies of the seven notes of a musical scale. He said they're one and the same. It's just interpreting the energy differently. When you see the color of it, you're interpreting it visually, the uh, frequency or the vibration. But when you hear the sounds of the seven notes, you're hearing that energy auditorily. So you're hearing it through the sense of hearing rather than seeing it through the sense and interpreting it through the sense of sight.
That's an
So
interesting thought. Yeah, that's awesome.
so many traditions believe that the seven notes of a musical scale can actually help balance, align, and reattune the energetic body. And I'm sure we're all well aware that, music, sounds, and vibrations do have an effect on us. I mean, many of us have probably turned on a radio and a song comes on and it might move us to tears, or we turn it to another station and it might make us want to get up and dance. It just has the ability to move us in profound ways, physically, emotionally, mentally. And so, sounds and vibrations, they do have the ability to help reattune us energetically.
Absolutely. I like that you were saying how you can turn on the radio. I don't listen to the radio that much, even though I love music. And every
Yes.
once in a while, man, I'll hit it on like, like 103.7, like the old, kind of like 60s, 70s, and a song will come on and man, it will turn my whole day around. That's all it takes is just that one song. It's like my spirit all of a sudden was just like, I just need a little something, need a little spark, and then it hits that tune, that vibration sparks. It's like, oh man, it becomes peripheral and
Yes.
nostalgic, and you feel this sort of sense of just I love when you get into that sense of peripheral feeling, like where the world just suddenly kind of goes from this narrow point to this really wide point. And I
Yeah.
know that
So,
music just has the ability to do that. And so yeah, absolutely. Its sound frequency is absolutely amazing, man. So
yeah.
and definitely. So if you're in Vero Beach, Florida, we got to check out Anthony because he is doing some sound bath meditations in studios. I definitely recommend it if you haven't been to one because I've probably been to about six or seven now, I think. And they're just absolutely amazing. Typically around 9 o'clock at night, I am tired. I'm ready to go to bed. You go to a sound bath and we're done usually around 9. I walk out and I'm like, I can run 10 miles. I can feel this connection to, it's amazing how the frequencies do that. And they're very, very powerful. I'm up to 5 singing bowls now, plus the Himalayan bowl, plus a few other ones, ever since I went to my first sound bath meditation that you were
Excellent.
facilitating a couple of years ago. So
I love
it's
it.
it's awesome. Well,
Yep.
thanks for
And
that explanation, man. That's awesome. And I want to ask you another question here, and we're going to kind of move up the scale a little bit on kind of solutionary things that are happening or solutions that we can look at inside of the world that we're living in now. Because I mean, it doesn't take much. I mean, everybody on a global scale can look out their window or go out into society and understand it's wherever you're at in your belief structure, that it's there's a lot of fear happening right now, and we're sort of being pulled into this sort of fear paradigm. But I feel personally that as this is happening and as that fear paradigm is kind of growing, that sphere is growing bigger, there's also another sphere that's growing equally. It's part of the binary aspects of life, the polarity aspects of life. As one grows strong, so does the other one. And I feel that this veil of love and compassion and courage, just to name a few virtues that carry strong frequency, are really expanding at the same time. And we can jump into these frequencies. So, Anthony, if you wouldn't mind, would you mind just talking a little bit on the practice or the art of cultivating love, gratitude, courage, and perseverance?
sure. It is something that I believe is definitely a topic that we do need to talk about in today's world. So I thank you for bringing this up because, like you, I do see this binary world that's happened right now, especially still being out within it and running into different people in different circles, and they see the way that I'm, going out and still doing classes. And there are some people that are very happy. They're very ecstatic to know that they can still come to something live and have this experience or do something to help refresh their body and mind. But on the opposite, I have some people that think, well, how can you do that? Isn't that sort of being irresponsible of going out and doing a bunch of classes a week and being in these rooms with a dozen people? So you're getting two different aspects. One that is like you're saying now, please know that I believe being cautious is a good thing. Caution is not a problem. But I believe once that flows too far, or tips too far into really living in fear, I believe that that becomes an issue, because when we're living in fear, we're living in the fight or flight or freeze response. We're not living from logical thinking. We're actually living from a an reactionary sort of way of moving through life. And it's not really even living life, it's just reacting to it. And it's really just like existing, not responding to what's happening wisely. So to cultivate the opposite of that fear, which many say the opposite of fear is love and compassion and courage and all of these things that are necessary and needed in today's world, there are many different tips, tricks, tools, practices that one can do. But ideally, I do think something important to touch upon is to know that if someone is living in fear, then it's not our job to judge them for that, and it's not our job to criticize them for that or tell them you shouldn't be living in fear. We can try to point the direction by how we're living, but everybody, I believe, through my particular point of view, is they're really where they are because where they are in that moment is giving them a situation or something that they need for their own personal experience, development, or growth. So, to my um, point of view, the work that we need to do is really self work, working self. All by working on ourselves, we begin to then affect the world around us. And to cultivate love, to cultivate compassion, to cultivate forgiveness, mercy, courage, some of the powerful practices that I find, of course, I might be partial, I might be biased, is meditation and mindfulness, because they help us to really take a look at the inner world. So you begin to see inside your heart, your mind, you really begin to see what the mind is thinking about, is dwelling upon. And that becomes something important, because what the mind begins to dwell upon is what it begins to see around it, is what it begins to actually begin to manifest more of in the world. And so, if we notice that we're dwelling more in fear, if we notice that we're thinking more from a fearful perspective, once we see it, once we become aware of it, that's when we have the ability to change it, correct it, or heal it. So sometimes we're going through life without even being aware of what it is we're feeling or how we're living. So mindfulness practice and meditation practice really shines the spotlight on that, on what's going on in our subconscious mind. What are we thinking? How are we acting? How are we living? What words are we speaking? We begin to see it more clearly. And again, we all have, I believe, these seeds of unconditional love within us, these seeds of courage within us, these seeds of compassion within us. But if we don't, if you have a seed and you don't place it in the right soil and give it an amount of light and give it some water, it doesn't grow. It just stays dormant in that seed. And that seed can stay there for like thousands of years. In fact, I believe about 5 years ago, they opened a tomb in Egypt and they found a whole like vase or container of wheat seeds that were sitting in there for thousands of years. And they were able to take some of the seeds out and began germinating them. They actually grew these
Wow,
after like maybe it was, I don't know, 3, 4, 5,000 years in a dark tomb,
that's great.
because the potential was still in that seed. It
The
was not
potential.
realized.
That is so awesome.
It was right there. And we have this potential within us to be compassionate. We have this potential within us to be loving, to be courageous. We just need to find the tools to bring that forth. So, meditation and mindfulness practices, I definitely believe can do that. There is the powerful practice known as loving kindness practice, which I believe helps to nurture that seed of love, compassion, and kindness within us. It helps us to see the interconnectedness between all life. I think it was Thomas Merton. Thomas Merton's, if you're not familiar with him, is a great Christian mystic. It was a Cistercian monk, And he lived in the United States and grew up in the like 40s, 50s, 60s. In fact, he was a very good friend of Thich Nhat Hanh. If you're familiar with the Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, they became very good friends and actually influenced each other. So Thich Nhat Hanh wrote a book, Living Buddha, Living Christ, and that was because he was really introduced to Christ through his friendship with Thomas Merton. And Thomas Merton's writing really began to be influenced by some Buddhist perspectives about stillness and entering within yourself. And so they were greatly influenced by each other. But he said that compassion is the awareness of our interdependence with all things. And so when we recognize that the essence within ourself is the essence within you, is the essence within, the life force of the trees and everything else, that we begin to, just by cultivating that knowledge and that awareness of that life force that animates me is the same light and life force that's looking out behind your eyes. It's the same life force that's giving rise to the suns and the stars and the galaxies. Well, once we recognize that, we become more compassionate with the people that are around us because we recognize that you and me at our core, at our essence, is the same.
Yeah.
I mean, we might look different, but really, when you get down to the truth of it, we all started out as a microscopic little cell, that just grew and divided into, 2 and 4 and 8 and to the 57 trillion cells in my body and your body. And people might say, but wait a minute, there is differences. There's DNA within those cells that are different. So we're different in that sense. I give them that. But the life force, the consciousness that's causing the cells to divide and grow, that's the same within each and every
Yeah.
one of us.
Yeah.
And if you can recognize that, that helps us to become more loving and compassionate towards each other also. I believe gratitude practice is a wonderful way to cultivate compassion. And it's also a way to see more of the miracles, the blessings, and the positivity in the world. In fact, there's work by Michael McKella and can't remember the other psychologist's name, but what they did was they were practicing researching gratitude practice for a long period of time, and they found that people who kept like gratitude journals and just wrote down things that they were grateful for, like made a list or just said, I'm grateful for this today, or if before they went to bed, they reviewed their day and just found something to be grateful for. And of course, the goal though was to not write the same thing every day. So don't just write, I'm grateful for my health today. I'm grateful for my health today. And then tomorrow, I'm grateful for my health. Find something different each and every day to truly be grateful for. And after about 6 to 8 weeks of practice, their happiness level began to increase by up to 25%. So they were seeing the world in a much more happier perspective, and they were seeing the world from a much more positive mindset. So I believe that that is a different powerful practice. In fact, Albert Einstein once said there's two ways to live in this world. We can live as if nothing is a miracle, or we can live as if everything is a miracle.
In that quote.
And I believe if you live as though everything is a miracle, you begin to see miracles that are happening all around you, even in a world that maybe some people would say, has its sort of, difficult moments and all of that. You still can see the silver lining in the darkness and in the dark times and all, if you stay more focused on the miracles that are, that life is a miracle, I should say.
Oh, absolutely. Whew. I love that. I love that statement. And the gratitude practice. Riff on that a little bit because I've always come back down to in the hard times.
Right,
I don't typically when I'm feeling like really in a really good place. I am grateful for being in that mode, but I particularly use gratitude in a negative situation. And turning the negative situation around and throwing the gratitude frequency at a negative situation, it's amazing how it totally penetrates that negativity and the way
yeah,
that I'm mentally perceiving this negative situation. And it shines this light on it to where it is nowhere near as negative. And I'm not being a reactionary person to what's happening, but more I become an action person. I'm taking action by giving this situation the frequency of gratitude, and it's so easy to do. It's literally just laying and sitting with that going, I am so grateful for this experience, thank you for this experience. And
right,
just by saying that and feeling it with your heart and your mind, it transforms it. The gratitude practice is such a powerful tool to use. I'm in
Absolutely.
big time agreement there.
Yeah.
um,
And people don't really realize it until they actually give it a try. I mean, you hear it, oh, just be grateful, or, try to practice gratitude. But once you really do practice and you see the way things change, it does become a very powerful thing. Meister Eckhart, who is another Christian mystic from Germany, he once said, if the only prayer you said was thank you, that would be enough.
it would be enough. It totally would. And one of the other things I was going to say that I started doing, I started kind of changing my nutritional habits up a little bit. I was started to go all vegetarian, but then I
Yeah.
kind of found, like my body was lacking. I don't know if I was detoxing, but I felt like I needed to kind of get more back on having like the meat protein. But what I
Yes.
found, because I really feel like I'd rather just eat plants and really learn how to do that for my body. But right now it's saying you need the protein. What I started doing, that I feel has transformed my perspective on eating meat was every meal I eat, whether it's plant or it's meat, I put my hands over it and I say thank you for your love and thank you for your light. And that's what I say, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart, because the energy that this meal is, this was a living being, whether it was a plant or a grain or or an animal. It feels weird saying that, but this was a lighted being that came into this universe to live its expression the way that it did. And I
Yes.
feel that by giving my love and my light to this, by being grateful for it, it's giving a peace, it's giving a purpose to the existence of these beings, these plants and these animals and things. And I feel so much better physically after eating a meal. I notice that I don't overeat. It's like I'll eat till I'm comfortable, but just by practicing being grateful for everything that I'm eating. And I've noticed it, and I can feel it in my body. I can feel definitive shifts since I started doing this, which it's only really been a few months since, like, I'm really paying attention to every meal that I'm doing this. But I recommend that too. Just being grateful for every meal that you have. Because in today's world, it's so easy just to, like, oh man, I'm starving. You'll pop up in the fridge. You're not even thinking. You roll up some turkey and you throw it on some
Yeah.
crackers. And you're like okay, so if we slow down a little bit and we actually, okay, I'm going to consume something into my body, which that the actual act of taking energy and putting inside of the body is such a miraculous thing. It's so sacred to me that when we give it the sacredness that it to me deserves, we are now not only just consuming just a dead product, we're actually giving life and light to a product that we're giving, and then it then gives it back to our body. It's another thing I started doing that I recommend people do, because it really works, man. It's amazing how all
Absolutely.
really works down to a quantum level.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing. I do believe that the energy you're imparting through that gratitude and thanking it is, just making so much better what you are ingesting, because what we consume is medicine. It is life, and so to just offer it the energy of gratitude or a blessing or something before we do can really do wonders to, like you're saying, how we feel just from eating that.
Yeah, it drastically changes. It's amazing. Even just slowing down and go, okay, I'm going to slow down, and
Yes.
I'm going to pay attention to myself eating and really enjoy this experience, no matter how hungry I am. Because sometimes we'll go 8 hours during a day without having anything, because a lot of times we're just so busy that we forget, or we just don't have time. And then we get starving.
Right.
It's easy to, but to even slow. That's even more important at that time, to slow down and then to really appreciate the nourishment that's happening when your body really is looking for some food. It'll appreciate it far greater extent, from my experience. Good advice, man. Thank you so much for that. Cultivating love, gratitude, courage. Um, it's a very powerful practice. And I think once we all start doing this on a day-to-day basis, we start to see a transformation. And that's what I come down to too, is that I feel very passionate about where we're all going in humanity,
Yeah.
and this collective conscious that we all share and that we're all tapped into. And by cultivating these frequencies that are love, courage, gratitude, compassion, perseverance, when we cultivate these virtues, and they are frequency sets, and we begin to experience that and express that, this goes into the ether, it goes there, in our own unique way, and it's available, and it's available for access. So I feel like sometimes when I go into these meditations or I go into these vibrations, that not only am I contributing to this as the ether, but there's also, it's already there. So it's also helping me become more connected to it because of everyone else that has already done it throughout time. I mean, Christ and Buddha, Maharaji, all these great monks that no one's ever heard of before, regular people like you and me, because you don't have to be a monk in Tibet to be able to really cultivate these things. You know, we all have the ability to do it, and it's all there and available in the ether. And I really feel this expansion where more and more people are waking up to this wonderful reality that we are the manifest. We manifest what we want, especially in today's world. We have a choice. Do we want to go into the fear and listen to the mainstream narrative? Do we want to get sucked down that rabbit hole, or do we want to cultivate our free living soul and share this with everyone else who chooses to do the same thing, you know? So,
Absolutely. I often say that, it's not God's responsibility to make a heaven of this earth. It's ours.
yes.
And the way we do that is exactly like you're saying. I often refer to us, I'll use the radio analogy again, is we're like a radio dial or a radio antenna, and we try to turn our dial to connect to whatever frequency we're trying to connect to. So if it's love and compassion, just try to turn that dial to find that frequency of love and compassion, and then you do fill yourself more with it, and you begin like that radio antenna to then spread that out into the communities and the people that are around you, just by now being a channel for that specific frequency or energy of whatever it is you're holding, whether it be peace or love or compassion or forgiveness or kindness or anything. You are now becoming the channel for that into this world and helping to, awaken that in others by them being into contact with the energy that you're sharing. And the more of us that do this, exponentially it begins to just grow in the world. People touch people, and the people that you have touched, they go out and touch a certain number of people. So it's a wonderful thing, a really, really wonderful thing. The more of us that do awaken and start to tune into that and try to hold that frequency or vibration throughout our day, we can really make a huge impact.
Oh, absolutely. And I can see it happening. You've made such a massive impact around here. Like I said, everybody knows Anthony Profeta. And I feel like everywhere I go, I'm serious. Like everywhere I go, it's like your name will get brought up or something stuff. Like, Anthony Profeta. Oh yeah, I know Anthony Profeta. I'm like, this is so hot. So it's like, Anthony, you're spreading, your message of love and compassion, and through what you do, it's really awesome. Like I really
Thank you.
very inspired by you, and have been ever since I met you, because you really are carrying the torch for this beautiful message, and it is making a massive explosive impact in the ether, and it's all there, man. So I really appreciate it, everything that you're doing to a very high magnitude, man.
You're
um,
making my day. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
you got it. Thank you. I have this thing written down here, and I don't know, I guess we can we can start to wrap things up a little bit. We can riff a little bit. I wrote this down. um, I'm trying to figure out how I could say this, as to where it'd be a good talking point, because I feel like, I think we already just said it. I mean, really, it's about, it's being the change. I say this on almost every show that I do, being the change that you want to see in the world.
Yes.
And by first doing that, we really have to learn how to cultivate these things. And if we are working at it, to work even harder at it. Like I find that in my own personal practice, that it's not like it's rainbows and sunshine. Like for me, it's like, it's not, because it's like every day has these challenges. It's like, and now they're even more magnified. Going to the grocery store, I have anxiety about this. I don't want to participate in this activities that are happening because I don't personally agree with it, but I have to cultivate these things like courage inside of me. So when I can practice and I can visualize and send this frequency throughout my own body, I can actually get up and go to the grocery store and actually have a good, decent experience. I don't have the anxiety that's there anymore. But it takes focus. It takes time to be able to sit down, even though it is easy. But once I feel like the routine gets down, we'll be able to kind of shut off the little ego voice that's saying, no, you don't have time to do this, or you're too upset or anxious to do this. But once we learn how to focus a little bit stronger and hold that focus, we can sit in and really cultivate these things. And it doesn't take long. Every day it could just take a few seconds of getting in the routine of being extremely grateful for our life, and by having the ability to express ourselves through our soul and through this body as a conscious being. And it really is a miracle. And the more I feel people see themselves as a miracle, they'll just bring a smile to their face, because like, wow, like we're just an absolute miracle of creation. This is what we are, right? Like,
Yes.
it's wonderful. So I wrote this down. I said, connecting to living soul and the emergence of free will and prosperity and abundance. Because I feel like that once we tap into this and we cannot participate, or we take the checkbox out of that fear paradigm and know that it exists and know that we have to go in there once in a while, but really focus on the love, compassion, gratitude, courage, and strength. Where this, because right now that veil is so thin and it's so accessible for everybody, um, to jump in there. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? On people becoming their own free living soul,
Yes.
and the emergence of abundance inside of ourselves, and creating that.
I think it's probably the most important task that we're being asked to do at this moment in time. Because what we truly want in the world, we need to focus on, we need to cultivate, we need to bring into the world. Like I said a moment ago, it's not God's responsibility to make heaven and paradise of this earth, it's ours. And right now we have a choice. Which way are we going to go? Are we going to keep moving further and more of us than keep going towards this path of fear and allow that to be the predominant guiding light? Or are we going to be moving in the other direction of the things that we were talking about, of the love, the compassion, the kindness, the mercy, all of those things? Now, I do agree with you that we live in this dualistic world, and that as one grows by default, the other will grow and try to balance it out, just like that yin and the yang. But I do believe that we can quit together. If more of us start focusing on the positive, if more of us start focusing on the love, the light, and again, not trying to change, but what, like you said, be the change ourselves. That's what we're being called to really do right now. Uh, Being that light and shining that light to others. There's a quote by Rumi, who once said, because everybody wants to change the world. Everybody thinks, we got to change this world for the better. We got to move in a positive direction. But Rumi once said, yesterday I was so clever. I wanted to change the world. Today I am so wise, I'm changing myself. And what he means by that is we're never going to change that. We can't control that. We can't control what others do. It's like it's like an addict. If an addict doesn't really want to give up whatever they're addicted to, the change isn't going to happen. You can have an intervention. You could throw them in a rehab facility. You could do anything you want. But until they physically want to make that change, very little help or change actually does happen. So if we want to change the world around us, we can't change another person. We can't, go out. Even if we make laws, people find ways to get around laws. It's not going to help. What we all have to start doing on a massive scale is begin going within ourselves and changing ourselves to become what it is we want to see in the world around us. And then by default, those things begin to grow. Those things begin to manifest. That's what actually begins to change the world by default. It's ironic that the world changes by changing us.
That's wild. I know.
And
Beautiful.
it is a beautiful thing, because really that's the only thing we do have control over. We don't have really control over external forces. I mean, some things we do, but in a large scale, we don't. The only thing we do have control of is our inner world and us. And we can change ourselves to any degree if we really want to make a change. It's not easy. It does take time. There are many things that we've cultivated in our life, past habitual patterns and habits and all of these sort of things that took years to form. So it's not like, 3 days of meditation is going to automatically break all those habits. It's going to probably take just as long to get over and rearrange your life or change the things of the patterns that have been set into new patterns. But if you take time and dedication, you mentioned before, if you just do a little bit every day, those little baby steps add into big changes. So there are people that go and they start meditating. They start saying, well, I have to meditate 20 to 30 minutes a day. And they try and they're doing it for a couple of days. Then they get frustrated and give up. And, they miss days here or there. And then it's totally ends sometimes. But what's more profitable, what's better way to look at it is not that you have to force yourself to sit for like a block 20, 30 minutes of spiritual practice or meditation or anything like that, but start slow. Just start with like a minute. But what the key is it's not quantity, it's consistency. And if you just do it a little bit every day, even if you're just getting in 60 seconds, eventually your life does begin to change because of the consistency of the practice. And that is how we can help ourselves to become that change, is to not force ourselves by, trying to do it overnight, not change overnight, not, have these high expectations that I'm going to start meditating and I'll meditate for an hour every day, but just start with little increments and you'll be truly surprised how your life does change and how your life does transform. And then by default, your life and your example and these qualities that you're living of happiness, of love, of peace, of compassion, they begin to overflow. And that can cause others to look at you and cause them to want to change. You can't tell them to do it, but they can see something happen in your life and they can see, wow, you know what? Logan seems so much happier. Logan seems so much more peaceful. What is he doing? And then they ask you and you say, well, I'm meditating or I'm doing prayers or whatever it is you're doing. And then maybe they'll go and start trying it for themselves. And there's a wonderful quote by St. Francis. I know I'm throwing out a lot of quotes there, but
Oh, it's fine. I love quotes.
they keep coming into my mind as we go along.
Bring 'em
But
out.
he once said to his monks when they went out, every day preach the gospel, but only when necessary use words. And so what he meant was do it by how you're living. Show them how to do this. Don't tell them or preach to them in words and tell them, but show them, be a model of what you want in the world. And then by default, that other people will say, "Oh wow, you know what? I want what they have."
Right.
And it's a wonderful way to help us change. Yeah,
Absolutely. I think, if you ask anybody really what the most thing that they want to have in their life beyond anything and beyond anything materialistic, I think most people will say happiness.
yeah,
It's that elusive thought or the elusive idea of what it is, because a lot of us, even though we do have happy moments, some of them very happy moments, I feel like that people are still looking, but what is this elusive happiness that it's that consistency. It's that I feel like that if we all do what you're saying to do, that little bit every day. I just even started waking up in the morning because I don't meditate every single day, but I do every day wake up and take big, long, deep breaths in. And I feel not just oxygen coming through, but it's the life force. I can feel the prana coming in and the
yeah.
negative going out, and it's just complete clear for that like 30, 60 seconds that I'm breathing, that I feel wonderful now that I'm getting up, I'm awake. Sometimes I'll go sit on the couch and then I'll meditate for a little while. Sometimes I'll have some coffee. I know it's not that good for you, but I'll have some coffee.
I got my coffee ready.
But it is those little steps and just a little bit every day. I think that once and I've felt that spark, and I've really started to feel that spark for the first time in my life, and I'm 40 now, for the first time at the beginning of 2020, where I could feel like, wow, there is so much energy happening right now. What can I do to help cultivate this on a day-to-day basis, so I can see, it's like a little spear. It's like you can see this little bubble, like, ooh, I want to expand that bubble because that's something in there. So then you start doing these things like it's like running and meditating and deep breathing and gratitude practices and being thankful for everything in your life, being thankful for the negative experiences that happen in your life. And that little sphere begins to open, you
Right.
know?
Yeah, and that you just hit a point that I think is vitally important for people to truly understand, is that to be even grateful for the negative experiences, because some people want it like I think you used the example before. They want it to be all sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns every single day. But to be honest, the greatest growth and the greatest lessons and the greatest spiritual development doesn't come from those rainbows and unicorns moments. It actually comes from the uncomfortable, the negative, the dark or the shadow experiences, the difficulties of life is often when the greatest growth in our lives does come from. So we should be grateful for them as well. And when we do get affected by them or come into an experience that, we really don't want, rather than sort of saying, well, why me? Or, fall into a victim mentality, rather say, well, what can I learn from this? Or what can I gain from this? Or what is the lesson for me in this? And that can be a life-changing experience also.
Absolutely. I feel like that almost every guru book I've read, that their wisdom and their knowledge of consciousness and mindfulness, just to name a couple of things, it all came from like a negative experience. Like Eckhart Tolle comes to mind, when he went through that really super deep depression.
Yeah.
There's another one too that is a real famous Swami from back, I don't know, hundreds of years ago, that felt like they were going through this whole death spiral, death cycle, and this massive fear that was taking place, and they came out on the other side being an enlightened person. There's so many. I just like, it took a negative experience. Not that we not saying that, well, you're going to have to like, be staring the grips of death in the eye before you, but it does happen. And we can look at what's happening in the world right now, as a collective thing that we're all going through that is very negative on every angle. That this is a great catapulting structure or system to go
Yes.
into that sphere of like, wow, okay, well, I can feel the energy, I can feel this love, I can feel this gratitude, and I want to learn how to cultivate that on a day-to-day basis, because it's life changing. It really is. And that statement, I'll say it again, it keeps coming back to me for months now, is be the change you want to see in the world. And to do that, you got to look at fear in the eye and the things that you feel uncomfortable doing, to go just face it, do it. You know what I mean? And you'll find that on the other side of that is more of a reward than anything else.
Absolutely. Yeah, and for I don't know if this is absolutely true. I never went back and counted it myself, but for anyone in the like Judeo-Christian background, there's a meme or a little quote that always goes around that within the Bible, it's stated 365 times, be not afraid. So they're reminding you once each day. Now, I don't know if there actually are 365 references to be not afraid, but I truly believe that trying to not live in fear, allow fight, flight, or freeze to be our over guiding and life driving principle, is totally something that we need to learn in this present moment life experience that we're in, because what I've gained through my meditation practice and my mindfulness practice is being able to sort of like the what you were saying before, slow down in order to be able to see what life is presenting so that I can truly make the wisest response in terms of the knowledge that I have. It doesn't mean I'm always going to make the right choice or the right decision, but at least I'm living through a response rather than a reaction,
Right.
because most often reactions are just not the wisest and skillful way to live.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's funny how, yeah, I totally agree. I think about that a lot too, about, the reactionary. I catch myself being reactionary, and being a dad. It's so easy to be reactionary, right? Because like they'll do things,
I'm
and
there.
and I'll be like, something spills and falls over the floor after I ask them not to do. So but I catch myself. I'm like, Logan, you're not, this is, you're number one, you're not teaching your kids a proper lesson, step back. And so I've learned to do that, to step back. And I don't do it all the time, but I have become more aware of that reactionary thing, and definitely encourage anybody to step back just even to notice that you're being reactionary, and to give yourself the space that it's okay to be reactionary.
Yes.
And then you'll start to see that you'll become less reactionary the more you just become aware of it. So
Right.
that's a good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And I truly believe children are our greatest teachers.
Oh yeah. Oh, I could not agree more, man. Like on so many different levels, the purity, the innocence, and then of course the mischief and the the things they want to get into, and everything under the sun. But they're carrying the torch for the next round, as we go through in life and society. So they are our treasure. In my opinion,
Absolutely.
the most important things. So yeah, man. All right, Anthony. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up. Again, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I've been looking forward to this now for weeks. Is there any last words or anything you'd like to say to anybody watching?
Um, no, I would just say to, if you do find this world a little bit of a challenging one, then just use the challenge as a moment for you to grow and a challenge to overcome any obstacles that are in your way. Because we can react to what's happening and we can respond to what's happening. And I know that in many people, rugs have been pulled out from under them in this new world that we find ourselves in, and they find it a difficult one to navigate. But I believe that if you really look at it, slow down, look at it in the right way, it's going to be a great opportunity for great growth. And if we all collectively start using this time wisely, where we're headed is a much more positive and beautiful direction.
Beautiful. I love it, man. I love it. So if anybody is looking to do a workshop or a sound bath or um, just to reach out to you for more information on what you offer, where can they go?
Thank you very much. Yeah, you can go to anthonyprofeta.com, Profeta, and through there I do offer one-on-one instructions with meditation or sound healing. Over the past year, a lot of people have wanted to do it more through Zoom or through, video conference and those sort of things. But I still do in-person workshops as well, so I do have sound baths. Right now, it's really only within the Indian River and Brevard and St. Lucie counties before I was traveling throughout Florida and even throughout the United States. But that's sort of been put on hold for a while. Hopefully that will change soon and I will be traveling throughout the US again. But yes, currently, if you're in the Melbourne or Cocoa Beach or Vero Beach or even Port St. Lucie and Stewart area, you can go to anthonyprofeta.com or follow me on social media at Anthony Profeta Meditation on Facebook or Instagram, and you can find out where I'll be and come check out a class. I'd love to meet you and connect with you. So thank you very much, Logan. This has been a wonderful day, and I
Thank
truly
you, man.
appreciate connecting with you.
Yeah, you too, brother. I really appreciate it so much. And yeah, man, let's do this again sometime and
I
you
look
know,
forward to that.
find some topics to talk about and get it out there. So hey,
Definitely.
I'm gonna hit the stop record button, but we'll just hang on here for just a few more minutes afterwards. All right, man.
Yep.
All right. Thanks everybody.